Chapter 1. The Pursuit Begins. What is a happy life? Most people are searching for happiness like it's a destination on a map. But maybe it's more like a way of traveling. Unknown. We begin with a question that sounds simple, almost too simple. What is a happy life? But the simplicity is deceptive, like a clear pond hiding deep waters underneath. The question has followed us since we first began to ask questions at all. From ancient philosophers to modern scientists, from monks in monasteries to entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley, everyone, in their own way, has chased this elusive idea of a good life. Is happiness comfort? Is it freedom? Is it love? Is it success? Or something quieter, like peace? Imagine a man, 45 years old. He's sitting in his Tesla in the driveway of his beautiful suburban home. He's got a smartwatch on his wrist, a corner office at work, 2 kids in private school, and a retirement plan fat enough to feed a small village. And yet, when he turns the key and the engine hums, he feels a weight. Something's off. Something's missing. You know this man. Maybe you've been him. Maybe, in some ways, you still are. That moment, the one with the quiet engine and the louder silence inside, is where this book begins. The false summit. We live in a world that constantly tells us what should make us happy. Billboards, social media, motivational reels with royalty-free music. They all scream a similar message. Buy this. Achieve that. Be like her. Hustle like him. Grind until you're numb. Then post about it. But here's what no one tells you. The top isn't always the summit. So many people climb the mountain of ambition, only to find that the peak they've reached isn't the one they were meant for. The view doesn't satisfy. The air feels thinner, not freer. And the joy they were promised? Nowhere in sight. Here's why. We've been taught to confuse happiness with pleasure or comfort or achievement. But none of those are happiness. They might be ingredients. But they aren't the meal. Doctor Robert Waldinger, director of the longest-running happiness study in history, the Harvard Study of Adult Development, which has tracked participants for over 80 years, put it plainly. The clearest message we get from this 80-year study is this. Good relationships keep us happier and healthier. Period. Not money, not fame, not followers, not abs, but connection. And yet, connection is exactly what our modern culture quietly erodes. We swipe instead of speak, that we scroll instead of sit still, that we chase likes instead of being loved. Happiness, real, bone-deep happiness, doesn't come from more. It comes from enough. The myth of arrival. There's a silent myth baked into modern living. The myth of arrival. It says, when I get there, then I'll be happy. When I get the job, when I lose the weight, when I find the partner, when I earn that first million, when I move to that city. But here's the secret nobody tells you at the beginning. There is no there. Every milestone you reach moves the goalpost forward. Every finish line turns into another starting line that if you build your idea of happiness on, when, you may never experience it at all. The Stoics knew this long before the modern world caught up. Seneca, a Roman philosopher and statesman, once wrote, "True happiness is to enjoy the present, without anxious dependence upon the future." Modern psychology echoes this sentiment. In positive psychology, Dr. Martin Seligman, one of the field's founders, defines well-being not as a destination, but as a balance of 5 pillars: positive emotion, engagement, relationships, meaning, and accomplishment. Notice, these are internal states and actions, not external possessions. Not one of them is about how others see you. They are about how you feel, think, connect, and live. Your definition matters, so let's ask again, more personally this time. What is a happy life to you? That's not a trick question. It's an invitation. Take a breath. Really ask yourself, when do I feel most alive? What moments bring me a sense of warmth, peace, or even just rightness? It might not look like the Instagram highlight reels. It might be as small as Sunday morning coffee with your grandmother, as personal as writing a story no one else reads. As quiet as watching the sunrise through your bedroom window. Whatever it is, honor it, because a happy life isn't always loud, that it's not always big, but it is always true. The happy life is not equal to the easy life. Here's a hard truth most self-help books don't like to mention. Happiness and ease are not the same. In fact, some of the happiest people alive have gone through extraordinary pain, that they've buried loved ones, started over in their 50s, lost everything, and rebuilt. Why? Because happiness is not the absence of struggle, that it's the presence of meaning, of connection, of values you actually live by. Take Viktor Frankl, psychiatrist, Holocaust survivor, author of Man's Search for Meaning. He wrote, "Those who have a why to live can bear almost any how." Frankl didn't find happiness in comfort, he found it in responsibility, in helping fellow prisoners survive another day, in imagining the moment he would embrace his wife again, even if only in memory. If happiness can exist there, in a concentration camp, it can exist anywhere, but it requires something many people never realize. A life of happiness is built, not found. Building, not finding. You don't stumble into a happy life like it's a $20 bill on the sidewalk. You build it, choice by choice. You shape it, habit by habit. You nurture it, day by day, moment by moment. And like any construction project, it requires a vision. What does happiness look like for me? A plan. What actually contributes to it? Tools, habits, mindset, relationships, patience, progress, not perfection. This book is your blueprint, not a rigid manual, but a framework, a toolkit, a conversation with you, about the human experience in all its raw, joyful, tragic, beautiful glory. You won't find magic pills in these pages, that you'll find principles that work, stories that resonate, and questions worth asking again and again. Where we go from here in the next chapters, we'll explore the actual mechanics of happiness, the neuroscience behind emotion, the habits that shift your brain toward optimism, how successful people across disciplines, from artists to investors to spiritual leaders, define and live their version of fulfillment, the invisible architecture of joy, connection, attention, purpose. But for now, here's your first invitation: pause. Not forever. Just for a moment. Reflect. Ask, what does a happy life look like for me right now, in this season? Write it down. Draw it. Say it out loud. Start the journey not with a sprint, but with a decision. You don't need to have all the answers, but you do need to begin, because no one can walk this road for you, but many, including me, can walk it with you. There's something else we need to talk about, something science has only recently begun to measure clearly: the fact that happiness is not one single feeling. It's not a single moment, not a universal formula. In fact, we experience happiness in at least 3 different layers, and recognizing them is the key to building a life that feels full, not just busy. The first layer is pleasure. This is the happiness of the senses, the burst of flavor from your favorite dessert, the laughter at a good joke, the feeling of warm sunlight on your skin. It's immediate, short-lived, and dependent on the external. And that's okay. These little hits of pleasure are not bad. They're just incomplete. A life built only on these spikes becomes a chase, and the danger is that the more you feed this type of happiness, the more you'll need. Like a sugar high, it fades quickly and always leaves you wanting more. The second layer is engagement. This is the happiness that comes from being fully immersed in something: work, art, music, a conversation, a game. Psychologist Mihai Csikszentmihalyi called this state flow, when time disappears and you're completely present in the moment. Flow doesn't always feel fun in the traditional sense. In fact, it often arises during effort, writing a difficult chapter, playing a challenging song on the piano, rock climbing a steep cliff. And yet, when you step back, there's a deep satisfaction, a quiet joy that lingers long after the moment ends. The third and deepest layer is meaning. This is the happiness that doesn't always feel good in the moment, but makes life feel worth living. Raising a child, fighting for a cause, grieving someone you love, but doing it surrounded by family. Meaningful happiness often looks like responsibility, sacrifice, service. It doesn't sparkle like pleasure. It glows like embers, steady, lasting, and deeply warming from the inside out. The happiest lives integrate all three. They don't chase only pleasure. They don't just lose themselves in tasks. They connect daily effort with a larger why. That's when the three layers, pleasure, engagement, and meaning begin to stack, to align, to reinforce each other. Now, let's go deeper still, into the biology of it all. Because happiness, as abstract as it seems, also lives in your brain, your hormones, and your nervous system. You are wired, chemically, to seek it. Four key neurotransmitters, dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins, are responsible for what we commonly call happiness. But they operate differently. Dopamine is the anticipation molecule. It's the surge you feel when you're working toward a goal, expecting a reward, or unlocking an achievement. It's powerful, and in modern life, it's often overstimulated by likes, notifications, sugar, porn, gambling. When dopamine is hijacked, we mistake stimulation for satisfaction. But if we learn to control it by setting meaningful goals, tracking progress, and celebrating real effort, dopamine becomes a powerful engine for drive and forward motion. Oxytocin is the bonding molecule. It's released through touch, eye contact, trust. It's the feeling you get when you hug a loved one, share a vulnerable story, or feel understood. This is one reason why meaningful relationships are so tightly linked to long-term happiness. Oxytocin regulates stress, lowers blood pressure, and builds connection from the inside out. Serotonin is the mood stabilizer. It's associated with self-worth, belonging, and respect. You don't get serotonin from scrolling through feeds. You get it through service, contribution, and recognition. Interestingly, it also increases when you spend time in the sun, walk in nature, or exercise. Evolutionarily, serotonin rewarded behavior that helped the tribe, cooperation, leadership, compassion. Endorphins are your body's natural painkillers. They come during exercise, laughter, even crying. That post-workout euphoria? That's endorphins doing their work. They don't last long, but they're a reminder that physical action, even discomfort, can produce real joy. Understanding this neurochemical quartet is like understanding your internal weather. You begin to see how your daily choices, movement, connection, rest, focus, literally shift your body into states of well-being or anxiety. You become the architect of your emotional chemistry, not just a passive passenger. But biology is only half the story. Culture plays its role too in how we define and pursue happiness. In the West, especially in individualistic societies, happiness is often equated with personal achievement, freedom, self-expression. In Eastern traditions, happiness may be more connected to harmony, family, duty, inner peace. Consider the Japanese concept of ikigai, a word with no perfect translation in English, but best described as the reason you get up in the morning. It's the intersection of four elements: what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you can be paid for. People who find their ikigai often live longer, experience less depression, and report greater life satisfaction, even in modest circumstances. In Okinawa, where some of the world's longest living people reside, ikigai is not a grand passion. It's often something small, regular, personal, a garden, a morning routine, a craft, a community role. So, happiness isn't just personal. It's also cultural. It's shaped by what you believe matters. And what you believe often comes from the stories you were told. This brings us to a vital truth. If you want to build a happy life, you have to rewrite the stories you inherited. Stories about what success looks like. Stories about worth, work, love, identity. Many of us are running scripts we never chose. We're climbing ladders we never leaned against the right wall. We're playing someone else's game. And then we wonder why it doesn't feel good to win. But here's the liberating part. You can change the story. You can write a new one. You can examine your beliefs and ask, is this mine? Or did I just accept it by default? One of the most powerful practices in building a happier life is to identify your inherited scripts and replace them with chosen values. Here's how. Start by asking, what did I learn about happiness growing up? Who modeled it for me? And were they really happy? What beliefs do I carry about success, money, relationships, time? Which of these beliefs still serve me? Which ones quietly sabotage me? This isn't about blame. It's about awareness. Because you cannot build consciously with unconscious tools. And here's the paradox. The more intentional you become about happiness, the less you chase it. Instead of sprinting after it, you create space for it. You begin to notice it in places it already lives, small moments, daily rituals, surprising connections. Let's take a real example. There's a story from a former Google executive, Mo Goddard, who spent years engineering systems that impacted billions. He had wealth, status, access to the top circles of innovation and power. But after the tragic death of his son, he began to ask, what is happiness, really? Not theoretically, practically. Urgently. He went on to write Solve for Happy, a book rooted in data, logic, and heartbreak. His core insight? That happiness is not something that happens to you. It's something you choose, over and over, by adjusting your expectations to align with reality and by loving what is. His equation is simple. Happiness equals reality. Expectations. It's not the only lens, but it's a powerful one. The lower the gap between what you expect and what life delivers, the more peace you find. But this isn't about settling. It's about learning to align. About choosing gratitude over entitlement. Acceptance over resistance. Action over complaint. So where does this leave us? Right where we began. With a question. What is a happy life? It's not one answer. It's a lifelong dialogue. It's a relationship you have with your own soul, your own mind, your own body, your place in the world. It's personal, universal, scientific, poetic. It's not waiting for you on the other side of a promotion. It's not sitting on a beach in Bali, though it might visit you there, briefly. It's built slowly, like a home, sometimes joyfully, sometimes painfully, but always intentionally. This book will walk with you through the blueprints, not by promising you perfection, but by showing you possibility, by offering stories, questions, tools, research, and reminders, because happiness isn't a place you find. It's something you build with your own two hands. Chapter 2. The Science of Fulfillment. What research reveals. Let's be honest. In a world overflowing with motivational quotes, Instagram mantras, and feel-good slogans, the word fulfillment has started to sound suspiciously vague. We talk about it like it's some kind of emotional jackpot, the final state after chasing passions, quitting jobs, moving to Bali, and discovering your true calling in a yoga retreat. But what if fulfillment is something quieter? Something more grounded? Something not built on intensity, but on consistency? Science suggests that fulfillment isn't a mystical force. It's not the result of luck or talent. It's a repeatable outcome, one that comes from how we live, what we value, how we structure our days, and how well we align what we do with who we are. It begins with a principle as old as philosophy itself, know thyself, for centuries. Philosophers from Socrates to Confucius emphasized self-awareness as the cornerstone of a meaningful life. Modern psychology backs this up. Research from Harvard and Stanford shows that people with high self-awareness, those who regularly reflect on their thoughts, emotions, and behaviors, make better decisions, have stronger relationships, and experience more consistent life satisfaction. Why? Because they stop living on autopilot. They notice their patterns. They learn from their triggers. They become students of their own story. Dr. Tasha Eurich, an organizational psychologist, studied thousands of people and found a sobering truth. Only 10 to 15% of people are truly self-aware, even though 90% believe they are. That gap between perceived self-awareness and actual awareness is the silent thief of fulfillment. It explains why people stay in careers they secretly hate, chase goals they don't care about, or repeat behaviors that leave them feeling empty. So how do we close that gap? Start by asking better questions. Most people ask themselves, what's wrong with me? Or why am I like this? But these questions often trap us in judgment and shame. A better question is, what is this feeling trying to teach me? Or What kind of person am I becoming through these choices? Fulfillment doesn't begin with answers. It begins with curiosity, the kind that slows you down, brings you inward, and helps you reconnect with your deeper values. And speaking of values, that's our next stop. According to behavioral science, people who live in alignment with their values, not just their goals, report significantly higher well-being. A study from the University of Sussex showed that people who acted according to their core values, even when it cost them time or money, experienced more purpose and less regret over time. But here's the tricky part. Most people can't clearly name their values. They say things like family, or success, or freedom, but those words are often vague, inherited, or aspirational. Fulfillment requires something more specific, values you can live out in action, not just admire on posters. Point one practical exercise is the Values in Action Inventory, created by psychologists Martin Seligman and Christopher Peterson. It helps people identify 24 core character strengths, from creativity and honesty to perseverance and kindness. The goal isn't to rank them, but to recognize your top 5, your signature strengths. These are the values that, when used regularly, unlock a sense of flow, energy, and alignment. In one study, people who used their signature strengths in new ways each day for a week experienced boosts in happiness that lasted for over a month. Not because their life changed, but because their relationship to life deepened. That's the thing about fulfillment. It doesn't demand a new job or a new city or a new relationship. It demands a new way of showing up, with intention, integrity, and attention. Let's explore that through a real-world lens. Take the story of Angela Duckworth, a psychologist known for her work on grit. In her research, she found that fulfillment doesn't come from talent alone. It comes from sustained effort towards something meaningful. People who scored high in grit, defined as passion and perseverance for long-term goals, consistently outperformed more talented peers. They felt more connected to their work, more satisfied with their journey, less vulnerable to burnout, because grit, at its core, is about depth. It's about choosing one thing to go deep on, instead of chasing novelty or abandoning ship when things get hard. Fulfillment, it turns out, is not about having more options. It's about committing to what matters, but commitment is hard in a culture of endless scrolling, unlimited choices, and constant comparison. We're sold the illusion that the next thing will make us happier. The next job, the next partner, the next city, the next version of ourselves. And so we keep consuming more advice, more hacks, more input, hoping one day it will click. But the truth is, we don't need more information. We need integration. We need to act on what we already know. That's where the concept of deliberate practice comes in. It was originally developed in the field of expertise by Anders Ericsson, but its insights apply far beyond skill building. It teaches us that mastery and fulfillment require focused attention, regular feedback, and a willingness to sit with discomfort. In other words, growth isn't always fun, but it's deeply satisfying. This is echoed in neuroscience. Dr. Andrew Huberman, a neuroscientist at Stanford, explains how discomfort and effort actually release dopamine, not just the reward itself. When you struggle on purpose, with intention, your brain begins to associate challenge with progress. You literally rewire your reward circuitry. That's the science of fulfillment. You become someone who doesn't just chase pleasure, but finds joy in pursuit, not because the road is easy, but because it's yours. Now let's add another layer: belonging. Humans are social creatures. Our brains are wired for connection. And fulfillment without belonging is like a house without a foundation. It may look beautiful, but it won't hold in the storm. Harvard's famous Grant study, which followed hundreds of people over 80 years, came to a startlingly simple conclusion: happiness is love. Full stop. The participants who reported the highest levels of life satisfaction weren't the richest or most accomplished. They were the ones with strong, supportive relationships, friends, family, partners, community. And this isn't just sentimental. It's physiological. Loneliness is now considered as harmful to health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It increases the risk of depression, heart disease, and even early death. But here's the twist: Belonging isn't the same as fitting in. Fitting in is about changing yourself to be accepted. Belonging is about being seen as you are and still being embraced. Dr. Green Brown puts it this way: true belonging doesn't require you to change who you are. It requires you to be who you are. That means fulfillment doesn't come from approval. It comes from authenticity, from being known, not just liked, from showing up real, even when it's risky. And if that sounds soft, consider this. The people who live with the most courage are usually those who know they are loved, not for what they produce, but for who they are. This emotional safety becomes the launchpad for purpose, creativity, leadership, and resilience. It's no coincidence that the best companies, schools, and teams invest not only in performance, but in psychological safety, because people thrive where they feel they belong. Fulfillment, then, is a web, not a ladder. It's made up of self-awareness, values, effort, connection, and meaning. Pull one thread, and the others respond. Strengthen one, and the whole system grows. It's not always loud. It doesn't always sparkle, but it's real, and it lasts. There's another truth about fulfillment that we rarely speak out loud. It's often unimpressive to others. It doesn't always look like a six-figure launch or a tropical retreat or a perfectly curated lifestyle. Sometimes it looks like walking away from a deal because it doesn't feel right, saying no to a bigger paycheck to preserve your peace, choosing your kid's soccer game over one more client meeting, turning off your phone and being fully present with someone who needs you. To the world, these moments may seem small, but to you, they feel like alignment. And fulfillment, more than anything, is a feeling of alignment between your values and your actions, between what you believe and how you live. In psychological terms, this is called congruence, a state where your internal world matches your external choices. When congruence is high, we feel calm, centered, energized. When it's low, we feel scattered, restless, or like we're living someone else's life. Carl Rogers, one of the founders of humanistic psychology, argued that congruence is essential for psychological well-being. Without it, we fracture. We perform instead of live. We impress instead of connect. In today's world of personal branding and performance metrics, this is more relevant than ever. Too many people are chasing the appearance of fulfillment, but neglecting its foundation. True fulfillment, ironically, is often invisible. It doesn't scream. It settles, like warm light through a window, like a deep breath after a long day, like knowing quietly and fully that you are on the right path, even if no one claps for you. And that brings us to the next layer, meaning. Viktor Frankl, Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist, once said, "Those who have a why to live can bear almost any." How? His book Man's Search for Meaning is one of the most widely read psychological texts in the world. In it, Frankl described how even in the unthinkable conditions of Nazi concentration camps, people who had a sense of purpose, a reason to endure, were more likely to survive. Not because their conditions changed, but because their inner world had something to hold on to. His conclusion: meaning is not something we find, it's something we create. It doesn't arrive like a lightning bolt. It's built through responsibility, service, creativity, and love. Modern research supports this. A study published in the Journal of Positive Psychology found that people who reported high levels of meaning in their lives didn't necessarily feel happy every day. In fact, they often experienced more stress and effort. But they felt fulfilled because what they were doing mattered. This distinction between happiness and meaning is critical. Happiness is often about how we feel in the moment. It's influenced by pleasure, ease, and external rewards. Meaning is about how we feel about our life as a whole. It comes from coherence, significance, and contribution. And when the two align, that's fulfillment. Take, for example, a nurse in a cancer ward. Her days may be exhausting, emotionally draining, and filled with difficult moments. She may not feel happy in the conventional sense, but she may feel deeply fulfilled because she is showing up for others in their most vulnerable moments, because she is living out her values of compassion, service, and dignity. This kind of fulfillment doesn't require fame or wealth or even recognition. It requires only this, that your life reflects something larger than yourself, which leads us into the surprising role of service. We often think of giving as a moral obligation, something we do to be good people. But neuroscience tells a more compelling story. Studies show that acts of generosity activate the same reward circuits in the brain as receiving money, food, or pleasure. In one experiment at the University of Zurich, people who spent money on others reported more happiness than those who spent it on themselves, even if the amount was small. In another study by social psychologist Elizabeth Dunn, participants were randomly assigned to spend money either on themselves or someone else. Those who gave to others experienced a greater increase in happiness, and the effect persisted for weeks. Why? Because giving reinforces a powerful belief: I have enough to share. That mindset of sufficiency rather than scarcity is a direct path to fulfillment. It shifts our attention from what we lack to what we can offer, from consumption to contribution. But service doesn't always mean charity. Sometimes it's presence, listening, encouraging, mentoring, supporting, offering your time, attention, or skills without expecting anything in return. These moments, when we step out of our ego and into connection, are some of the most meaningful in human life. The Dalai Lama put it this way: if you want others to be happy, practice compassion. If you want to be happy, practice compassion. Fulfillment grows in the space between us, in the invisible threads of kindness and care that connect us to something greater than ourselves. But in order to give, we must first nourish ourselves. And here we come to the final piece of the fulfillment puzzle: habits of the body and mind. Too often, people treat fulfillment as a purely emotional or spiritual goal. But the truth is, your body is not separate from your mind. They are partners in balance or in burnout. The science of well-being is clear. Regular sleep, movement, nutrition, and recovery are not luxuries. They are non-negotiables for a fulfilled life. In fact, the National Institutes of Health has identified sleep as one of the strongest predictors of emotional regulation, memory, decision-making, and mental health. Yet millions of people sacrifice sleep in pursuit of success and then wonder why they feel anxious, scattered, or numb. Exercise, too, is profoundly linked to mental clarity and emotional stability. A study published in The Lancet Psychiatry found that regular physical activity, especially team sports, cycling, or even walking, is associated with fewer days of poor mental health. And let's not forget food. The emerging field of nutritional psychiatry shows how gut health and brain health are deeply connected. Diets rich in whole foods, fiber, and healthy fats not only support the body, but reduce symptoms of depression and anxiety. Fulfillment, then, is not just about what you do. It's about how you care for the vessel that allows you to do it. This is not selfish. It's strategic. Because when your body is rested and your mind is nourished, you are far more capable of showing up for your values, your people, and your purpose. This is how all the pieces come together. Self-awareness gives you clarity. Values give you direction. Effort and grit give you momentum. Connection and service give you meaning. And self-care gives you the fuel to keep going. Fulfillment is not a place you arrive. It's a state you cultivate over time, with care, with courage, and with honesty. And maybe, just maybe, it starts with a whisper, not a roar. A quiet moment where you realize, this matters. And you choose to lean in, not perfectly, not always with confidence, but with intention. And that, more than anything, is the beginning of a fulfilled life. Chapter 3. Emotions are messengers, not enemies. We often treat emotions like unruly guests, barging into our lives uninvited, making a mess, staying too long, and disrupting our sense of order. We try to ignore them, suppress them, fight them off. We've been conditioned to believe that emotions, especially the painful ones, are signs of weakness, distractions from logic, or obstacles to productivity. But what if emotions aren't interruptions? What if they're instructions? In truth, emotions are messengers. Every emotion you feel carries information. It's a signal, not a sentence. Anger might point to a boundary being crossed. Sadness could be a sign of deep value or loss. Anxiety, It's often your mind waving a red flag, telling you to prepare or to pause. Even joy has a message. It shows you what aligns with your spirit. Ignoring emotions doesn't erase them. It just buries them alive. And buried emotions don't stay buried. They seep into your relationships, your choices, your tone of voice. They turn into chronic stress, physical symptoms, or unexplained fatigue. Neuroscientist Dr. Antonio Damasio found that patients with damaged emotional centers in the brain lost the ability to make even the simplest decisions. Why? Because emotions are how we prioritize. They inform what matters. The truth is, we are not thinking machines that feel that we are feeling beings that think. Let's look at a story. During a leadership retreat, a high-performing executive, let's call her Maya, broke down mid-session. She had spent years managing large teams, overseeing billion-dollar budgets, mentoring rising stars. She was, by every external metric, successful. But inside, she felt hollow. The facilitator asked a simple question. When was the last time you let yourself feel sad without trying to fix it? She couldn't remember. That moment opened a door. Over the following months, Maya began to see her emotions not as threats, but as guides. Sadness pointed her toward relationships that needed healing. Frustration led her to clarify her values. Joy reminded her where she came alive. She didn't become less effective. She became more authentic. Her team noticed. Her relationships deepened. Her energy returned. Emotions are not problems to solve. They are data to be explored. Research from Breen Brown, a qualitative researcher with decades of study in vulnerability and emotion, found that most people can only name 3 emotions: happy, sad, and angry. But the full emotional landscape includes dozens: envy, awe, disappointment, gratitude, shame, pride, calm, fear, anticipation. The more precise your emotional vocabulary, the more emotionally intelligent you become. It's like tuning an instrument. The more nuanced the notes, the richer the music. Let's take another example. Shame. Often avoided at all costs. Shame is like an internal spotlight exposing where we believe we're not enough. It's painful, yes, but it also reveals where we most crave connection or acceptance. When acknowledged gently, it can lead to growth. When ignored, it festers into self-sabotage. Or take anger. We're taught to push it down. But healthy anger isn't rage. It's a signal that something is unjust, unfair, or misaligned. Activists, reformers, and creators throughout history have channeled righteous anger into movements, art, and change. The goal isn't to be emotionless. It's to be emotionally literate. So how do we begin to listen to emotions instead of labeling them as enemies? Pause and name. When an emotion arises, stop and name it. I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm feeling proud. Naming creates space between you and the feeling. Ask why. What triggered it? What belief does it touch? What value might it reflect? Let it move. Emotions are called emotions because they're meant to move. Cry. Laugh, journal, talk, walk. Emotions processed in motion don't get stuck. Respond, don't react. Once the message is heard, ask, what's the best response here? Emotional maturity is not the absence of emotion. It's choosing your response with awareness. Neuroscience supports this. The amygdala, our brain's emotional alarm center, is wired for fast reactions. But the prefrontal cortex, responsible for higher reasoning, can step in if we create a pause. The more we practice this pause, the more emotionally intelligent we become. In relationships, this emotional fluency changes everything. Instead of assuming, we inquire. Instead of blaming, we connect. Instead of judging our feelings or others, we learn to sit beside them with curiosity. Consider Fred Rogers. Yes, Mr. Rogers, who said, anything that's human is mentionable, and anything that is mentionable can be more manageable. His entire life's work was about helping children understand emotions, because once you can name a fear, it loses some of its grip. Once you speak sadness, it begins to lift. Now imagine if we all lived this way. If workplaces made space for emotional honesty. If families taught emotional vocabulary as early as the alphabet. If leaders modeled presence over pretense. This isn't idealism. It's wisdom backed by science, psychology, and the undeniable truth that to be human is to feel. Your emotions are not flaws. They are your inner compass. And when you begin to listen, truly listen, you'll find that they've been trying to guide you all along. Toward truth, toward healing, toward wholeness. Let them. Chapter 4. Designing your inner world. Mindset, meaning, and identity. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine your inner world, not as abstract thought, but as a real space. What does it look like? Is it chaotic and cluttered, or calm and intentional? Is it built from hand-me-down beliefs and outdated fears, or carefully designed by your own choices, reflections, and lived truths? We often focus on changing the outside, jobs, cities, partners, routines. But transformation, real, lasting transformation, starts inside. The architecture of your inner world determines how you respond to life. It decides what you notice, what you resist, what you love, what you fear, and most importantly, who you become. This chapter is about that architecture, your mindset, your meaning-making patterns, and the identity you wear and carry. Because whether you realize it or not, you're always designing something. The only question is, are you doing it intentionally? Let's begin with mindset. Carol Dweck, a psychologist at Stanford, introduced the world to two core types, fixed and growth. A fixed mindset believes talents, intelligence, and capacity are static. You're either good at something or not. A growth mindset understands that abilities can be developed through effort, strategy, and feedback. The difference isn't academic. It's existential. In one of her studies, students with a growth mindset, who were taught to embrace challenge and see effort as a path to mastery, outperformed their peers over time, even when starting with lower test scores. Why? Because they believed they could change. And belief is a blueprint. It shapes how you face obstacles, criticism, success. Now pause. Ask yourself, what do I believe about myself when no one's watching? That quiet answer is what builds your internal architecture, but mindset is just the framing. Meaning is the interior design. Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist, wrote in Man's Search for Meaning, "Those who have a why to live can bear almost any how." He watched fellow prisoners waste away or rise up, not based on strength, but based on whether they could still find meaning, even in suffering. Meaning gives structure to chaos. It doesn't erase pain, but it provides context. It lets you turn struggle into story, regret into responsibility. You don't have to invent some grand life purpose right now. Meaning can be small, subtle. A daily ritual. A project that matters. A commitment to growth. What matters is that you choose it. Let's turn to identity, the foundation. Who are you, really? Not your title, not your resume, not your Instagram bio, but the deep, unshakable core. Identity is both stable and fluid. You are not who you were 5 years ago, yet something essential in you remains. Here's the challenge. Identity can become a cage. When we cling to fixed self-concepts, I'm not creative, I'm always anxious, I'm just not a leader, we reinforce the very walls we long to escape. Identity, when unexamined, becomes limitation. Instead, try thinking of identity as a garden. Some parts need pruning. Others need water. Some beliefs were planted by others and don't serve you anymore. You get to choose what grows. Take the story of Kwame, a software engineer who secretly loved poetry. For years, he told himself he wasn't that kind of person. He believed creativity and logic didn't mix. But the more he ignored it, the more restless he felt. One day, he signed up anonymously for an open mic night. That choice unraveled years of silent fear. Today, he's not just an engineer or a poet. He's both, and better at each because he embraced the full architecture of his identity. Or consider Layla, who grew up believing she had to be the strong one. Never asked for help. Never show vulnerability. It helped her survive. But as an adult, it isolated her. Therapy didn't make her weak. It revealed new emotional rooms she didn't know she was allowed to live in. Your mindset lays the frame. Your meaning arranges the furniture. Your identity chooses what kind of home you're building. So, how do we renovate the inner world? Audit your beliefs. What assumptions do you carry about who you are and how the world works? Are they inherited or chosen? Write them down. Shift the narratives. When you say, I always, or I never, pause. Is that a fact or a story? Replace with, I'm learning to. Or, I used to believe. Design rituals that reflect the real you. Don't wait for identity to shift on its own. Act as the person you're becoming. Want to be a writer? Write daily. Want to be kind? Practice small acts. Identity follows action. Redefine success. Instead of chasing external metrics, define success by inner alignment. Do your actions reflect your values? Are you building a life you recognize as your own? And most importantly, give yourself permission to evolve. You are not betraying your past by changing. You are honoring your growth. Every version of you brought you here. Let the next one carry you forward. Your inner world is not a fixed structure. It's a living system. It breathes, shifts, matures, and when you tend to it, your outer world begins to reflect that richness. Because no matter where you live, what you own, or what title you carry, your true home is the one you build inside. Chapter 5. Habits that shape a joyful life. Joy doesn't just happen. It's not something we wait for, or something we earn after grinding through pain and stress. It's something we cultivate, day by day, choice by choice, habit by habit. We often imagine joy as a mountaintop moment, a wedding, a promotion, a dream vacation. But real joy? The kind that sustains, heals, and restores? That joy is much quieter. It's found in routines, in morning stillness, in the way we pour our coffee, in how we speak to ourselves when we fail. The truth is this: we become what we repeat, and joy, when repeated often enough, becomes a way of being. So let's explore the daily practices, the habits that build a joyful life, not someday, but today. Start with this simple truth: small things aren't small. Dr. B.J. Fogg, a behavioral scientist at Stanford, found that the key to lasting change isn't massive effort, it's tiny habits. One push-up, one line in a gratitude journal, one glass of water in the morning. These are not grand gestures, but they're anchoring practices. They shift our self-image. They whisper, I care about my well-being. Over time, they shout out a joyful life is not built by intensity. It's built by consistency. Let's break it down. Begin your day before the world begins it for you. There is something sacred in those first waking minutes. Before emails, before headlines, before the world starts asking you to respond, solve, prove, react. What would happen if, instead of grabbing your phone, you took 1 minute to breathe deeply, to stretch, to say, I'm alive, I'm here, I get another chance? That's not fluff. That's neuroscience. Studies show that our early morning state is the most impressionable. It's when your brain is highly plastic, ready to absorb emotion and set your tone. If the first thing you consume is crisis, you'll carry tension into your day. But if you start with peace, you plant a seed that grows all day long. Move your body. Even just a little. We tend to think of exercise as punishment for eating or preparation for a summer body. But your body isn't a problem to be fixed. It's a vessel for joy. Movement changes your chemistry. It's not just about endorphins. It's about self-trust. When you show up for yourself physically, you start to believe, I am someone who takes care of me. That belief is powerful. It spills into everything else. You start eating better, thinking better, choosing better. Even 10 minutes of movement is enough to change your emotional weather. Don't aim for a marathon. Start with a walk, a stretch, a dance to your favorite song. Joy lives in the body. Don't forget to visit it there. Curate your inputs. Your habits aren't just about what you do. They're about what you allow in. Every day, your brain is being shaped by what you read, hear, watch, and scroll through. Most of us are feeding our mind an emotional fast food diet. Sensational news, Comparison-heavy social media, outrage headlines, gossip. Start paying attention to the emotional residue of what you consume. Does it inspire, uplift, teach, challenge you in a good way? Or does it drain, distract, diminish? Your attention is your most precious resource. Spend it wisely. You don't owe anyone your anxiety. Practice gratitude, not as a performance, but as perception. Gratitude is not about pretending everything is okay. It's about noticing what is okay, even when everything isn't. Dr. Robert Emmons, one of the leading researchers on gratitude, found that even writing down 3 specific things you're grateful for each day can improve mood, sleep, and long-term happiness. But here's the catch. Specificity matters. I'm grateful for family is fine. I'm grateful for the way my daughter laughed tonight when we made pancakes together is transformative. The more detailed you are, the more your brain starts scanning the world for those micro moments of light. Gratitude rewires your lens. It doesn't change the world. It changes the way you see the world. Make time for joy with no ROI. Not every moment has to be productive. Not every action has to justify itself. When was the last time you did something just because it made you feel alive? Painted for no audience? Danced for no camera? Cooked slowly? Read fiction? Played a game with no scoreboard? Joy is not a reward for working hard. It's a way to fuel the work of living. Rest, play, laughter. These are not extras. They are essentials. Connect intentionally that we are not meant to live alone in our heads. Joy grows in the soil of connection. And yet, in our hyper-connected world, loneliness has quietly become one of the greatest health risks. Harvard's 75-year-long study on adult development found one thing again and again. The quality of your relationships determines the quality of your life. Make connection a habit. Text a friend. Call your sibling. Schedule a walk with someone who lifts your spirit. Listen more than you speak. Ask questions that go deeper than, "How are you?" Your joy is tied to your people. Invest in them. Sleep. Not because you're weak, but because you're wise. Ariana Huffington, who once collapsed from exhaustion at the height of her career, now calls sleep her superpower. And for good reason. Sleep isn't the absence of productivity. It's the foundation of it. Without it, even your best habits fall apart. With it, your emotional resilience rises, your focus sharpens, and your body heals. Guard your evenings. Power down screens. Set a consistent rhythm. Create rituals that prepare you for rest, just like you would for someone you love. Because that someone is you. Celebrate progress, even the kind no one sees. Joy grows when we honor the journey, not just the results. The habit of recognition, pausing to say, "That mattered," builds momentum. Whether it's sending that difficult email, resisting an old trigger, showing up when you didn't feel like it. See it, name it, own it. The brain loves closure. When you celebrate a small win, your nervous system says, "Let's do that again." Joy isn't waiting at the finish line. It's hiding in every step. Replace energy leaks with life-giving rhythms. Sometimes, habits that shape a joyful life aren't about addition. They're about subtraction. What drains you? What do you keep doing that numbs rather than nourishes? Social media spirals? Late-night worry sessions? Saying yes when you mean no? Audit your patterns, one by one. Not to shame yourself, but to free yourself. Boundaries are habits, too. And every time you honor them, you declare, "My peace matters." That a joyful life is not about chasing more. It's about choosing better mornings, better inputs, better connections, better rest, better stories. And the good news? You don't need to wait. You can begin building that joyful life today with whatever small act is within reach. Because the small things, done often, done with care, are not small at all. They are the architecture of joy. They are the seeds of a life that feels light, true, and yours. Let them take root. Chapter 6. Relationships. The hidden architecture of long-term happiness. We often chase happiness through goals, achievements, possessions, or milestones. But quietly, Often unnoticed, there's something far more powerful shaping the quality of our lives, the people we do life with, not the number of friends, followers, or connections we have, but the depth, the trust, the safety. The resonance. Harvard's 80-plus year study on adult development, perhaps the longest study of its kind, found a single, resounding truth. Good relationships keep us healthier and happier. Period. More than income, more than fame, more than intelligence or genetics, relationships are not just part of life. They are the infrastructure of life. When we feel seen, known, and loved, we thrive. When we feel isolated, dismissed, or chronically misunderstood, everything else begins to crumble quietly at first. Then loudly. So, what does it take to build the kind of relationships that nurture joy and resilience over a lifetime? Let's begin not with the other, but with ourselves. Because the foundation of every healthy relationship is self-awareness. You can't invite someone into intimacy if you've locked the door on your own heart. Take James, a brilliant product designer in his mid-30s. On paper, he was thriving, successful, respected, busy. But emotionally, he felt like he was moving through life with armor on. Relationships were transactional. Dates rarely went past 3 months. Friendships felt surface level. In coaching sessions, a truth emerged. James feared that if people saw his full self, his past, his needs, his fears, they'd walk away. So he only gave parts. It's hard to be deeply loved when we never fully show up. Healing began with a practice of emotional honesty with himself. Once James learned to name what he needed and own what he felt, connection became real. Not overnight, but authentically. That's the first key. We can't connect from masks. We connect from truth, and truth requires safety. Which brings us to the second ingredient, psychological safety, the felt sense that we can be vulnerable without fear of judgment or punishment. Whether it's a romantic partner, a colleague, or a lifelong friend, ask yourself, do I feel safe to say what I really think? To disagree? To be wrong? To be soft? When people feel safe, they open. When they feel judged, they hide. And you can't build something deep with someone who's emotionally in hiding, whether that someone is you or the other person. Now, let's talk about boundaries. Popular culture often frames boundaries as walls. But in truth, boundaries are bridges. They protect what's sacred so love can flow freely. They are acts of clarity, not cruelty. Dr. Green Brown puts it simply, clear is kind. When you communicate your limits with respect, you're not rejecting someone. You're inviting a deeper form of connection. You're saying, I want to stay connected to you, and this is how that's possible. Too many relationships fall apart not from too little love, but from too much assumption. A woman named Elena once shared how, for years, she silently resented her best friend for constantly canceling plans last minute. She never said anything, believing that keeping the peace was noble. Until the resentment boiled over into passive aggression, and finally, distance. One honest conversation could have changed everything. It's not conflict that ruins relationships. It's unspoken disappointment. Accumulated misunderstandings. The stories we write in silence. The most joyful people don't avoid hard conversations. They invite them, because they've learned that truth, even when it's messy, is the path to closeness. Another pillar of long-term connection is mutual curiosity. Too often, we assume we know people. We shrink them into categories. My funny friend, my stoic partner, my sensitive sister. But people are constantly changing, evolving, unraveling. Curiosity keeps relationships alive. It says, I want to keep knowing you, not just remembering who you were. In great marriages, deep friendships, even in strong professional partnerships, curiosity functions like oxygen. It asks questions. It listens between the lines. It notices subtle shifts. Ask yourself, when was the last time I asked someone I love, what's been on your mind lately? Or, is there anything you've been holding in that you want to say? Or even more powerful, how can I support you better these days? Joyful relationships don't happen by luck. They happen by attention. Now, we can't talk about joyful connection without naming the power of belonging. Belonging is different from fitting in. Fitting in asks, what do I need to change so I'll be accepted? Belonging asks, Where can I show up fully as myself and still be welcomed? True belonging begins when we stop editing who we are to meet expectations. It begins when we risk being known quirks, flaws, contradictions, and all. And while we all crave this kind of acceptance, we must first offer it to others. Can we welcome the parts of people that are inconvenient, different, unfinished? Joy grows in relationships where no one has to pretend. Now, let's be clear. Not every relationship deserves a front row seat in your life. Some people are lessons, not lifelines. And one of the most joyful, liberating habits is learning to release relationships that harm more than heal. That's not failure. That's maturity. Sometimes the most loving thing you can say is, I love you, and I'm stepping away. Sometimes the most powerful act of joy is choosing peace over proximity, because your inner circle, those closest to your heart, should not be accidental. They should be intentional. Who energizes you? Who listens with empathy, not just opinion? Who shows up, especially when there's nothing to gain? That's your core. Invest there. Show up there. Celebrate and grieve and grow there. In the end, a joyful life isn't built alone. It's shaped by the people who walk with you through seasons, who mirror your worth when you forget it, who laugh with you until your ribs ache, who sit in your silence, who challenge you with love. Relationships are the hidden architecture of long-term happiness. Build them, tend them, and most of all, become the kind of person you'd want in your own life. Because joy multiplies when shared. And love, real love, is always the most powerful builder of all. Chapter 7. Work, Purpose, and Passion. Doing what sets you on fire. There's a question that quietly simmers beneath the surface of every morning alarm, every long commute, every calendar invite. Is this it? Is this the life I signed up for? Is this how I want to spend most of my waking hours? Is this what I was made to do? Work is not just about making a living. At its best, it's about making a life. And yet, so many of us feel numb at work, detached, directionless. We count down hours, not because we're lazy, but because something inside us knows we're not where we're meant to be. In a global Gallup study, only 23% of people reported feeling actively engaged in their work. That means nearly 4 out of 5 people are sleepwalking through their professional lives. They're not lazy. They're misaligned. The real issue isn't hustle versus rest. It's meaning versus monotony. Because humans, wired as we are for security, also crave something deeper, significance. Let's be clear. Purpose is not a job title. It's not reserved for artists, activists, or entrepreneurs. Purpose is simply the sense that what you're doing matters, that your work contributes to something bigger than you, that it lights something in you. And that fire, when you find it, changes everything. Take Kai, a former corporate strategist in London. He was great at what he did, made good money, had the respect of his peers. But every Sunday, a quiet dread settled over him. He called it the Sunday fog. That subtle but persistent sense of spiritual disconnection from his weekdays. After years of ignoring it, he began volunteering on weekends at a community makerspace, fixing bikes, mentoring teens, helping build things. He lit up. Within a year, Kai had restructured his work life. Same skills, but now applied to social impact startups. Same talents, new direction. The difference? He stopped working only for income and started working in alignment with impact. Because here's the truth. You don't have to quit your job to find purpose, but you do have to look for alignment. Ask, what am I good at? What energizes me? Not just exhausts me. What problems am I naturally drawn to solving? What would I do even if no one applauded? These are not idealistic questions. They're survival questions for your soul. As the author and business thinker Jim Collins once said, life is short. Do work that matters to you. Now let's bust a myth. People often believe passion is something you find, like a hidden object waiting under a rock. But research by Stanford psychologists shows that people who view passion as something they must discover often give up when things get hard. But those who develop passion through effort, curiosity, and patience are more likely to sustain it. Don't wait to find your passion. Grow it. Feed it. Follow its clues. Your fire doesn't start as a bonfire. It begins as a spark. A fascination, a pull, A moment of aliveness. Honor those moments. Their data. Now, let's talk about the magic of flow, that state of total immersion, where time disappears and the task becomes the reward. Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, the psychologist who coined the term, found that people in flow states report higher levels of happiness and intrinsic motivation than nearly any other time. They're not just productive, they're alive. Flow happens when challenge meets skill. Not too easy to bore you. Not too hard to overwhelm. Just right enough to stretch you. Ask yourself, when was the last time you got so lost in what you were doing that you forgot to check your phone? That's not distraction. That's direction. The most fulfilled people intentionally design their lives to include more of these flow states. Whether it's writing, coding, teaching, gardening, coaching, creating, those moments are breadcrumbs. Follow them, but let's be honest. Not all parts of meaningful work are thrilling. There's drudgery in every job. There are bad days and dream roles. The secret is in what Angela Duckworth calls grit, the sustained effort over time in pursuit of a meaningful goal. Passion without perseverance fades, but combined, they fuel mastery. And mastery feels good, not because it makes you superior, but because it makes you authentic. It reveals the deepest, clearest version of who you are and what you bring. Let's also name what kills passion: burnout. You can love your work and still burn out if you never rest, if you tie your worth to output, if you say yes to everything and everyone but yourself. Rest is not the opposite of work. Rest is what makes good work possible. Athletes train hard, and then they recover. Musicians rehearse, and then they pause. The mind works the same way. To sustain joy in work, you must design rhythms, not just routines. Moments of pause, recovery, reflection. Even moments of boredom, because often, creativity is born in boredom. And then there's community. Purpose-driven work is rarely a solo act. Surround yourself with people who remind you who you are, who challenge your limits, who reflect your vision back to you when you've forgotten it. The fire inside you burns brighter in shared oxygen. And finally, remember this. You don't need a grand purpose to live a meaningful life. You just need to do what matters, consistently. That might be raising a child with intention, building a team with integrity, teaching with love, writing with truth, coding with curiosity, farming with care. What matters is not the size of your platform. What matters is the depth of your presence. So ask yourself, not someday, today. What sets me on fire? What pain do I want to solve? What light do I carry that the world needs? Because your life is your canvas, and your work, paid or unpaid, is one of your most powerful brushes. Paint with passion, create with courage, build with joy. And when you do, your work won't just be what you do. It will be who you are becoming. Chapter 8. Money and Meaning. Rethinking Success. Let's talk about the conversation that most people whisper about but rarely confront directly. Money. We want it. We need it. We fear it. We chase it. And yet, for something so central to our daily decisions, money often remains a source of confusion and contradiction. We've been taught to link money and success so tightly that, over time, they've become nearly indistinguishable. But let's pause and ask, what does success actually mean? And what if our definition of success is making us quietly miserable? For decades, we've inherited an unspoken equation. Success equals wealth plus status plus productivity. It's everywhere. From Instagram highlight reels to school report cards, corporate ladders to motivational speeches. The logic goes, if you make enough, climb high enough, stay busy enough, you win. But here's the catch. Many of the people who win by those rules don't feel successful at all. Take the story of Daniel, a high-earning tech executive in San Francisco. Stock options, seven-figure salary, corner office. By every measure, he had made it. But during a retreat, when asked to describe a moment of pure peace in the past year, he went silent. After a pause, he said quietly, "I don't think I've had one." Daniel wasn't greedy. He wasn't shallow. He had just bought into a version of success that left no room for his soul, and he's not alone. Psychologists call this the arrival fallacy, the belief that when you reach a certain milestone, money, promotion, house, car, then you'll be happy. But what actually happens? The goalposts move. the target shifts. The feeling of enough never arrives. Dr. Tal Ben-Shahar, who taught Harvard's most popular class on happiness, says it simply. Attaining lasting happiness requires that we enjoy the journey on our way toward a destination we deem valuable. Money, then, is not the destination. It's a vehicle. It can buy choices, comfort, freedom, but it cannot buy meaning. It cannot buy purpose. It cannot buy a life you're proud of. Let's not be naive. Money matters deeply. Financial stress is real. Poverty is not poetic. Security gives people breathing room to think clearly, love fully, and contribute generously. But after a certain threshold, the relationship between money and happiness plateaus. A groundbreaking study by Daniel Kahneman and Angus Deaton once suggested that emotional well-being leveled off after $75,000 per year in the U.S. More recent updates suggest the number may vary by region and person, but the core message holds. More money only makes you happier when it reduces pain. After that, it just adds options. What truly increases fulfillment? Strong relationships. A sense of control over your time. Purpose-driven work. Health, mental, emotional, physical. Moments of flow and presence. Giving back. We've all met people with very little who radiate joy. And we've seen millionaires who look empty behind their eyes. The difference? Not the number in their bank account, but the story they believe about it. Let's go deeper. What is money? Really? At its core, money is a symbol of trust. It's a collective agreement that a piece of paper or a number in your app can be exchanged for value. But that means money is only as meaningful as the value you attach to it. Ask yourself, what does money represent for me? Safety? Freedom? Power? Approval? Escape? Who taught me that? And is that belief helping or hurting me today? Because unless we interrogate those stories, we'll spend our lives chasing shadows. Take Sophia, an artist raised in a family where money was scarce. For years, she avoided financial planning, told herself money was dirty, that she was above it. But deep down, she was afraid to confront her past, afraid to feel her own power. When she finally worked with a financial coach, she didn't just learn budgeting, she reclaimed her right to thrive. Money wounds are real. So is money healing. That healing begins when we shift from scarcity to enoughness. Scarcity whispers, there's never enough. If someone else wins, you lose. Enoughness says, you are worthy. There is room for you. You don't need more to be more. This shift changes everything from how we spend, to how we give, to how we define success. Let's talk about generosity. Research by Elizabeth Dunn and Michael Norton shows that spending money on others increases happiness more than spending on ourselves, especially when it's personal and intentional. It turns out we're wired to give. Giving aligns with our deepest values: connection, contribution, empathy. So if you want to feel rich, don't ask how much you have. Ask how much you share. Now, let's redefine wealth. Real wealth isn't just dollars. It's time you control. Energy for what matters. Relationships you can count on. Skills that compound. Experiences that shape you. Integrity that anchors you. As Naval Ravikant, entrepreneur and thinker, put it, the three biggest forms of wealth are wealth and money, wealth and time, and wealth and health. You want to be rich in all three. So how do we rethink success in a world obsessed with more? Start by defining your own metrics. Maybe success means waking up without dread. Doing work that lights you up. Having dinner with your family every night. Traveling twice a year. Making a difference in one person's life. Building something that lasts longer than you. Success, when stripped of comparison, becomes clarity. And when you align money with your values, it stops being a trap and becomes a tool. Let's end with this. Imagine yourself at 85, sitting on a porch, reflecting on your life. What will you remember most? What will make you proud? What will make you smile? Chances are, it won't be your portfolio or your promotions. It'll be the people you loved, the courage you showed, and the way you lived with heart. Money will have played a role, but meaning will have been the story. So earn with intention, spend with joy, give with open hands, and let money be the servant, not the master of a truly rich life. Chapter 9. The body keeps the score. Physical health and mental clarity. You can't outthink your body. No matter how sharp your mind is, how disciplined your calendar, or how many podcasts you consume about peak performance, if your body is exhausted, your clarity is compromised. If your nervous system is shot, your thoughts won't flow. If you've been running on caffeine, cortisol, and willpower, sooner or later the debt comes due. And the body always collects. The phrase "the body keeps the score" isn't just poetic, it's scientific. Coined by psychiatrist Bessel van der Kolk, it captures a truth that modern science continues to confirm. Your physical body stores your emotional experiences. Stress, trauma, joy, rest. None of it exists only in your mind. It's embodied, felt, remembered not just by neurons, but by muscle fibers, gut bacteria, heart rate variability, and hormone patterns. The body doesn't forget. Consider this. You get an email that triggers anxiety. Before you've even had a chance to interpret the words, your stomach tightens. Your jaw clenches. Your breathing shallows. That reaction doesn't come from logic. It comes from your nervous system. It's fast, automatic, ancient. Your body reads the signal before your mind understands it. Now zoom out. What happens when this becomes your default state? What happens when your nervous system is stuck in on mode, your shoulders perpetually tense, your sleep light, your digestion off, your attention scattered? What happens is this. You begin to drift further from your own center, from clarity, from peace, from presence that we've been taught to treat the body like a vehicle, something to control, push, hack. But the truth is, your body isn't a machine. It's an intelligent, living ecosystem, one that whispers at first, and then, if ignored, screams. Stress, when short-lived, isn't the enemy. Acute stress sharpens you, energizes you, helps you respond to challenge. But chronic stress, unresolved, unprocessed, and unrelenting, is corrosive. It inflames. It dysregulates. It wears you down from the inside out. In a landmark study known as the ACE, Adverse Childhood Experiences study, researchers found a direct link between early life trauma and long-term health outcomes. Everything from heart disease to autoimmune conditions. But trauma isn't limited to childhood or to extreme events. It can be accumulated in microdoses, emotional suppression, lack of safety, living out of alignment for years. The body stores it all. Let's make this real. Meet Alan, a successful 42-year-old attorney who came to a wellness clinic after years of insomnia, digestive issues, and panic attacks. Nothing seemed wrong. Blood work was fine. MRI clean. He even looked healthy, worked out regularly, ate clean. But his body was waving red flags. Underneath the surface, his nervous system was on high alert 24/7. It turned out Alan had spent years ignoring grief from a parent's death, over-identifying with his job, and never slowing down. His body finally said, "Enough." The breakthrough didn't come through more work. It came through stillness, breath work, long walks, therapy, learning to rest. His clarity returned, not by grinding harder, but by listening deeper. When the body was allowed to reset, his mind cleared like a fog lifting. There's a reason the world's oldest traditions begin with the body. Ancient yoga isn't about flexibility, it's about presence. Tai Chi isn't about exercise, it's about energy flow. Indigenous rituals, Eastern medicine, even monastic Christianity, all emphasized movement, rhythm, breathing. Because long before we could explain it in labs, we knew. You cannot separate the physical and the spiritual. Modern science now echoes this wisdom. Exercise is not just for aesthetics, it's mental hygiene. A 2021 study in the journal Frontiers in Psychiatry found that regular aerobic movement reduces symptoms of depression as effectively as medication in some cases. Why? Because movement releases endorphins, balances neurotransmitters, improves sleep, and lowers inflammation, all of which support emotional regulation and mental focus. Sleep is another pillar. In our hustle culture, sleep is often treated as optional. But neuroscience tells another story. During deep sleep, your brain literally cleans itself, flushing out toxins, consolidating memory, regulating mood. Miss enough of it, and your thinking dulls, your emotions spiral, your immune system weakens. Then there's food. Your gut isn't just for digestion. It's home to a second brain, the enteric nervous system. This isn't metaphor. 90% of serotonin, your mood-regulating neurotransmitter, is made in the gut. Your microbiome, the trillions of bacteria living inside you, directly influences your anxiety levels, your focus, your immune system. What you eat is what you feel, and then movement. Not the punishing kind. Not the metrics-obsessed gym routine you hate, but joyful movement. Walking, dancing, stretching, playing. These forms of physical expression aren't just good for you. They're ancient ways of reconnecting with yourself. When you move your body, especially in rhythm with breath or nature, you realign your nervous system. You release what words can't reach. But beyond habits and hacks, there's a deeper truth. Your body needs to feel safe. When your body feels safe, your mind opens. When your body feels safe, your creativity flows. When your body feels safe, relationships deepen. That sense of safety isn't created by ignoring pain or pretending everything is fine. It's created by honoring what your body tells you. Moment by moment, safety comes from listening to fatigue instead of pushing through it, saying no when something feels off. Resting without guilt, nourishing without shame, letting go of perfection and leaning into rhythm. One of the most healing questions you can ask isn't, "What's wrong with me?" It's, "What does my body need right now?" Maybe it needs water, or stillness, or movement, or warmth. Maybe it needs permission to cry, to nap, to breathe deeply, slowly, on purpose. These small shifts aren't indulgent. They're intelligent acts of reconnection. The nervous system isn't just a stress detector. It's your emotional compass. It tells you when you're grounded and when you're fragmented, when you're aligned and when you're off course. Your job is to listen, not override. And yes, healing takes time. But every small act matters. Every stretch, every full breath, every slow meal, every screen break, every early bedtime. These are not just lifestyle choices. They are declarations. I deserve to feel whole. My clarity matters. My peace is not negotiable. In a world that celebrates overdrive, listening to the body is a radical act of intelligence. In a culture that profits from your exhaustion, resting becomes a rebellion. In a system that tells you to push through pain, healing becomes leadership. Remember, your body has been with you through everything. It has witnessed all you're becoming. It is not weak for slowing down. It is not wrong for aching. It is not flawed for needing cared. It is sacred. It is wise. It is telling you what your mind might be too busy to hear, that if you want clarity, start not with another strategy, but with a breath. A walk, a stretch, a pause, because the truth is, the body doesn't just keep the score. It also holds the key. Chapter 10. The Art of Stillness. Meditation, Solitude, and Presence. In a world obsessed with movement, stillness is a quiet rebellion. We live in an age of constant stimulation, alerts pinging, calendars filling, voices streaming through every available speaker. We are told that the matter is to move fast. To win is to do more. To rest is to fall behind. But somewhere beneath that noise, a softer truth waits. Not all growth comes from action. Some of the most profound shifts begin in silence. Stillness is not the absence of life. It's the space where life is felt most deeply. In that space, when the world is quiet and you are alone with yourself, not scrolling, not responding, not performing, you begin to hear the parts of you that are always speaking but rarely heard. Your breath, your heartbeat, your deeper knowing. Meditation is one way into that space. It's not about escaping your thoughts, but meeting them with gentleness. It's not about becoming perfectly calm. It's about becoming present. And presence doesn't mean shutting the world out. It means letting it in, fully, without resistance. You don't sit down to meditate in order to feel a certain way. You do it to become more honest about how you already feel. The most common misconception about meditation is that it's meant to empty the mind. But the mind was never meant to be a blank slate. It's a sky sometimes stormy, sometimes clear. The goal is not to push the clouds away, but to remember you are the sky. The thoughts come and go. You remain. In one study by Harvard researchers, people reported being less happy when their minds wandered, even if their bodies were doing something pleasurable. The conclusion was simple: our minds are happiest when they are where our bodies are. In other words, presence is the true source of joy, not achievement, not productivity, not even pleasure. Presence, and presence is cultivated like a muscle. Left unattended, we drift. We plan the future, rehearse conversations, relive regrets. We miss the life that's happening in the now. But when we return again and again to this breath, this sound, this step, we remember that joy isn't something to chase. It's something to notice. Solitude deepens this practice. Not loneliness, but chosen aloneness. Time without distraction. Time where there is no one to impress, nothing to fix, no performance to maintain. In solitude, the masks come off. You remember who you are when no one is looking. You start to sense what's true for you, not what's expected. Many of history's greatest minds knew this. Virginia Woolf wrote about a room of one's own. Thoreau retreated to Walden Pond. Steve Jobs took long silent walks before major decisions. Even Martin Luther King Jr., in the height of the civil rights movement, spoke about the necessity of withdrawing into stillness for strength. Not to escape the world, but to re-enter it with clearer vision. Because that's the secret about stillness. It's not a retreat. It's a recalibration. It doesn't remove you from life. It returns you to it, clearer, calmer, and more connected. Stillness isn't the end of productivity. It's the source of meaningful action. In Japanese Zen, there is a concept called ma, the space between the notes in music, the pause in conversation, the breath between movements. It's not empty. It's alive. It's what gives rhythm meaning. Our lives need ma. The quiet between achievements. The pause after loss. The silence before a decision. Without it, everything becomes noise. But we fear that silence. We fill it with podcasts, music, scrolling. Not because we're curious, but because we're avoiding. Because silence can surface things we haven't faced: grief, boredom, uncertainty, restlessness. But those are not enemies. They're doorways. When we sit with discomfort instead of running from it, something begins to shift. The fear loses its grip. The mind softens. The body settles. And something wiser steps forward. You don't need a mountain retreat to practice stillness. You need 5 minutes, one breath, a willingness to be here now. Try this. Sit. Close your eyes. Place a hand on your heart. Inhale slowly. Feel the breath enter, then leave. No need to fix or analyze. Just witness. Do this not to achieve serenity, but to remember that serenity is already within you, buried under the noise. When practiced consistently, meditation reshapes your brain. MRI scans show increased gray matter in regions associated with compassion, emotional regulation, and attention. The amygdala, the brain's fear center, shrinks. You literally become less reactive, more present, more whole, and presence doesn't just benefit you. It transforms how you show up for others. A truly present person is rare. We all know the difference. Someone can be with you physically but miles away mentally. Then there's the person who listens without interrupting, looks at you without glancing at their phone, makes you feel seen, not scanned. That's presence. And it's magnetic. Stillness gives birth to that kind of presence. The kind that doesn't need to prove, perform, or persuade. The kind that simply is. That sits in grief without rushing. That laughs without filter. That notices beauty in the ordinary. That pays attention to the moment, to the people, to the pulse of life itself. So many of us think clarity will come from more information. But it often comes from less. From subtraction. From silence. From stopping long enough to hear the inner voice that's been whispering all along. You are already enough. You don't have to chase it. You are it. The art of stillness is not a luxury. It is a discipline, a medicine, a return. In a culture of more, it asks, what would happen if you simply paused? In that pause, you may just rediscover the most important thing you've been looking for yourself, because in the end, it's not how fast you moved, but how deeply you lived. Not how much you did, but how fully you were there. And it all begins in stillness. Chapter 11. The Role of Adversity. Growth through struggle. That we often imagine a happy life as one free from hardship, as if peace and struggle are opposing forces, and to have one, the other must be absent. But what if adversity isn't the enemy of happiness, but its architect? What if our deepest strength, our clarity, our compassion are not born in comfort, but carved out through fire? Adversity is not optional. If you live long enough, you will face it: loss, failure, rejection, illness, disappointment. But while pain is universal, transformation is not. Some people are broken by suffering. Others are broken open. The difference isn't in the pain. It's in the meaning we make from it. The story we choose to tell. There's an old Japanese art called kintsugi, the repairing of broken pottery with gold. Rather than hiding the cracks, the artisan fills them with lacquer mixed with precious metals. The break becomes the most beautiful part of the piece. The history is honored, not erased. This is how adversity can shape us, not by making us good as new, but by making us better, wiser, more luminous. Research supports this. Psychologists call it post-traumatic growth, the positive change that can follow struggle. After surviving great challenges, many people report deeper gratitude, closer relationships, greater inner strength, and a renewed sense of purpose. But here's the nuance. Growth is not a guarantee. It's a possibility. And like all possibilities, it requires attention, intention, and time. Let's look at a story. At age 26, a young woman named Lisa lost her job, her relationship, and her father within 6 months. She spiraled. Panic attacks, isolation, sleeplessness. But one night, she picked up a journal and began to write, not to be profound, but just to survive. Page after page, grief spilled out. Then questions. Then insights. What started as therapy became practice. What was private became powerful. Years later, she would turn those pages into a book that helped thousands navigate their own losses. I wouldn't wish that year on anyone, she said, but I wouldn't take it back either. It made me someone I respect. This is the paradox. We wouldn't choose adversity, but we can choose what we do with it. Adversity strips us of illusion. It burns away the false stories we tell about control, certainty, invincibility. In its wake, it leaves something raw but real. A blank page, a deeper question, a new capacity. And in that rawness, people often discover their true self. Not the self they curated, but the one they actually are. Not the polished resume or the smiling photo, but the resilient, aching, deeply human soul beneath. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison, but emerged not bitter, but resolute. He wrote, "I have walked that long road to freedom. I have taken a moment to rest. But I can only rest for a moment, for with freedom comes responsibilities." His suffering became the crucible in which a nation's hope was forged. You don't have to be a revolutionary to grow through struggle. Sometimes, growth looks like forgiveness. Sometimes it's learning how to ask for help. Sometimes, it's simply standing up again after you've been knocked flat by life. That here's what matters. Not pretending everything is fine, but facing what's real. Adversity is not an invitation to stay positive or sugarcoat pain. It's a call to feel fully, and then to integrate what you've learned. To ask, what did this teach me about myself? What matters more, and what matters less, because of this? Who did I become, not despite this pain, but because of how I met it? Struggle gives you access to truths that comfort never could. Empathy, for one. When you've sat with your own sorrow, you don't look away from someone else's. You meet them eye to eye. You say, I've been there. I may not know your exact path, but I know what it's like to hurt and heal. And that healing, that inner alchemy, often becomes your greatest gift to the world. Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist, famously wrote, "When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves." His book, Man's Search for Meaning, written in the ashes of unimaginable suffering, has helped millions find purpose through pain, because adversity asks, will you let this harden you or deepen you? It's okay to break. In fact, sometimes breaking is the only honest thing to do. But you are not your breaking. You are what you do after. You are how you rebuild. You are what you create with the rubble that if happiness were only found in ease, it would be fragile, fleeting. But happiness that includes struggle, that is rooted in resilience, that happiness is earned, and it lasts. Oh, don't envy those who've had a smooth road. Often, it's the scarred, the stretched, the weathered souls who carry the most peace. They've faced the storm. They've walked through fire and learned to breathe through the smoke. Adversity isn't fair, but it can be formative. It can burn away distraction and call us to our essence. It can strip what's surface and strengthen what's sacred. The point is not to glorify suffering, but to redeem it mind meaning from the ashes let the pain change us, but not define us.to emerge, not unscarred, but unshaken.in that way. Adversity is not just something to survive, that it becomes something through which we come alive. Chapter 12. Time, Focus, and Energy. The real wealth. We often say, time is money, but that's a dangerous understatement. Money can be earned, saved, invested, or even returned. Time, once spent, is gone. You can't buy it back. You can't pause it. You can't replace it. And yet, we treat our time and the energy that fills it as if it were endless. We give it away freely, unconsciously, often to things that do not matter. Here's a radical truth. Time, focus, and energy are your true wealth. They are the foundation of everything you experience, create, and become. They shape your work, your relationships, your mental health, and your sense of purpose. If you master these three resources, not just manage them, but consciously design them, you'll live with power, presence, and peace. If you squander them, no amount of money or status will make you feel rich. Let's begin with time. We all have the same 24 hours in a day, but we live them so differently. Some people seem to stretch time as if they've found secret hours. Others feel perpetually rushed, depleted before the day even begins. The difference isn't how much time you have, it's how intentionally you live it. The philosopher Seneca wrote over 2,000 years ago, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." That's more true now than ever. Our attention is constantly being hijacked by notifications, emails, infinite scrolls, the illusion of urgency. We've become addicted to busyness, mistaking motion for meaning. But a full calendar is not a full life. If your time is always reacting to others' demands, if your schedule is packed with obligations instead of values, then your days are not really yours. You've outsourced your most precious resource. That's where focus comes in. Time without focus is noise. But focused time? That's where clarity, creativity, and mastery are born. Neuroscience tells us that deep work, periods of sustained, undistracted attention, is where we do our best thinking and make our biggest leaps. Yet most people spend their days in fragmented attention, constantly switching tasks, interrupting themselves before they reach any depth. Here's the cost. Every time you shift your attention, your brain pays a toll. It takes time and energy to refocus. This is called attention residue, the cognitive friction of mental multitasking. The result? Shallow thinking, diluted creativity, chronic mental fatigue. But when you reclaim your focus, even 1 hour of intentional work can be more impactful than an entire day of scattered effort. This is why great thinkers, from Einstein to Maya Angelou, sought solitude and structure. They knew that brilliance isn't born in chaos. It's cultivated in the calm space where deep thought can breathe. How do we protect focus in a world designed to steal it? We must treat it like a sacred ritual. Block time for meaningful work and defend it as fiercely as a meeting with your boss. Turn off notifications. Silence the noise. Train your mind to do one thing at a time. Start your day not with your inbox, but with intention. What I want to create today. What matters most? Because where your focus goes, your life follows. Now let's talk about energy, the fuel that powers both time and focus. You can have a wide-open calendar and a silent phone, but if your body is exhausted or your mind is foggy, you won't be able to do much with it. Energy is physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. It's not just about sleep or caffeine. It's about alignment. When you're doing work that excites you, time expands. When you're around people who uplift you, energy flows. When your actions reflect your values, your body feels more alive. Contrast that with the drain of spending time in environments that suffocate you, conversations that numb you, or tasks that feel meaningless. That's not just psychological, it's physiological. Your body responds to alignment with vitality and to misalignment with fatigue. So how do we renew energy? Physically, through movement, sleep, nutrition, breath. The basics are not optional, they are your battery. Emotionally, by setting boundaries. Say no more often, not out of selfishness, but out of reverence for your energy. Mentally, by taking real breaks. Not just scrolling, but resting your mind. Stillness. Nature. A walk without a podcast. Spiritually, by doing something that brings you alive. Art. Music. Worship. Laughter. Silence. Service. Whatever reconnects you to the why beneath the what. When your energy is protected, your focus sharpens. When your focus sharpens, your time becomes potent. And when all three are aligned, life becomes lighter, not because there's less to do, but because you're doing it from a place of clarity and strength. Let's look at a practical example. Take a woman named Jordan, a mid-level manager and mother of two. She used to start her day by grabbing her phone before getting out of bed. Emails, Slack, news, Instagram. By 9 a.m., she was already drained. Her days blurred together in meetings and multitasking, her evenings in distracted guilt. But one morning, she made a change. She left her phone in another room. She sat with a coffee and wrote 3 priorities for the day, real priorities, not busy work. She blocked 2 hours of uninterrupted work time. She took a walk at lunch, no earbuds. She said no to a Zoom meeting that didn't need her. That evening, she was still tired, but not depleted. She was proud, present, at peace. That was the first day. Over time, those small shifts became a new rhythm. She didn't change her job or her responsibilities. She changed her relationship to her time, focus, and energy. And her life began to change. You can do the same. You don't need more hours. You need fewer distractions. You don't need a perfect schedule. You need clarity about what matters. You don't need to do more. You need to protect what makes you feel most alive, because in the end, wealth is not just what you have. It's what you can pay attention to. It's the freedom to spend your minutes and energy on the things that matter most, the people you love, the work that moves you, the moments that become memories. The future belongs to the focused, the fulfilled, the intentional. So ask yourself, is your time aligned with your values? Is your focus aligned with your purpose? Is your energy aligned with your truth? If not, the good news is you can begin again. Point 1 breath, 1 block of time, 1 act of clarity at a time. That's how we build a rich life, not from the outside in, but from the inside out. Chapter 13. Designing an environment that supports you. We like to think of ourselves as purely will-driven beings. That if we just had enough motivation, we could make the right choices, build better habits, change our lives. But the science and experience says otherwise. Willpower is a finite resource. It burns out. It fluctuates. It gets hijacked by fatigue, stress, temptation, and distraction, which is why one of the most powerful ways to shape your life isn't just by changing yourself, it's by changing your environment. Your environment is the invisible hand that guides your behavior. It influences what you eat, how you think, how you work, who you become. And the key insight is this: if you want to change your life, design your environment to make success easier and friction lower. Think of it like a river. You can try to swim upstream every day, fighting your own habits, fighting distractions, fighting exhaustion. Or you can shift the current. You can build a system around you that moves you in the direction you want to go, even on the hard days. This is what high performers, creatives, and fulfilled people do intuitively. They design for alignment. Let's start with the physical environment, your space. Look around the place where you spend most of your time. Does it inspire you or drain you? Does it help you focus or distract you? Our surroundings whisper to us constantly. A cluttered desk doesn't just look messy, it creates mental fog. Harsh lighting, constant noise, or a couch that's too comfortable can slowly eat away at your motivation without you even noticing. A study by Princeton Neuroscience Institute found that physical clutter competes for your attention and reduces your brain's ability to focus. Another study showed that workers in environments with natural light and plants reported higher levels of well-being and productivity. Small changes make big waves. Want to read more? Put a book on your pillow every morning. Want to eat healthier? Stock your fridge with prepped fresh food and keep junk out of sight. Want to meditate? Set up a dedicated, inviting corner with a cushion and candle. Want to write more? Create a quiet, clutter-free space with a notebook or open document always ready. Design removes friction. Now shift to the digital environment. This is where most of us spend our waking hours, yet few of us have truly designed it. Notifications ping endlessly. Social media lures us into comparison. Our phones are Swiss Army knives of distraction, but you don't have to be at the mercy of your tech. You can shape how it shapes you. Turn off all but essential notifications. Move tempting apps off your home screen, or delete them altogether during focus seasons. Use website blockers to protect deep work time. Create digital zones for different purposes. One space for work, one for rest, one for learning. Your phone, your browser, your apps, these are your digital furniture. Arrange them with the same intention you'd use for your home. Then there's your social environment. Arguably the most influential of all. Jim Rohn famously said, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." It's not just a metaphor. Neuroscience backs this up. Humans are deeply social and mimetic. We mirror the behaviors, attitudes, and even health habits of those around us. If you want to level up your life, take inventory. Who drains your energy and who gives you energy? Who challenges you to grow and who keeps you small? Who believes in the version of you that you're becoming? It's not about judgment or cutting people off recklessly. It's about curating proximity. Spend more time with those who expand you. Seek out community that lives the values you want to embody. If your environment doesn't support your growth, it will slowly sabotage it. This includes what you consume, the books you read, the podcasts you listen to, the voices in your social feed. Are they making you better or bitter? Are they feeding your curiosity or your fear? You can't control every part of your environment, but you can control more than you think. Let's look at a real story. Aaron was a programmer trying to build a side business. He had passion, skill, and ambition, but every night after work, he found himself exhausted, sinking into the couch, watching hours of YouTube and gaming until past midnight. His mornings were foggy, his weekends filled with guilt. He thought he had a discipline problem, but he didn't. He had an environment problem. Once he realized this, he didn't try to fight his laziness, he redesigned around it. He unplugged his gaming console. He put his laptop on his kitchen table every evening. He created a rule, 30 minutes of project time before any entertainment. He moved his phone charger to the other side of the room. He started sleeping better. He launched his product in 90 days. His willpower didn't grow overnight. His environment just stopped working against him. Design is not about perfection. It's about making better the default. It's not about force. It's about flow. When your space, your tools, your people, and your routines are aligned with your goals, discipline becomes easier, sometimes even unnecessary. So ask yourself, what do I want more of in my life? What environments naturally encourage that? Where am I unintentionally designing for distraction, fatigue, or self-sabotage? Then start small. Change one corner of your space. Rearrange your phone. Reevaluate one relationship. You don't need to overhaul your life in one day. You just need to shift the current. Because here's the truth. Your environment is either a cage or a catalyst. It either dulls your spark or fuels your fire. And the beautiful thing, you get to choose, not once, but every single day. Chapter 14. The Power of Letting Go, Forgiveness and Release. There is a quiet power that rarely gets celebrated in headlines, awards, or social media posts. It doesn't look impressive on a resume. It doesn't get applause. But it can transform a life more profoundly than any achievement, promotion, or breakthrough. It's the power of letting go. We live in a world that glorifies holding on to status, to stories, to grudges, to identities that may no longer serve us. We clutch the pain of past betrayals like heirlooms. We rewatch old arguments in our minds like reruns of a show we hated the first time. We mistake memory for identity and resentment for strength. But what if healing doesn't come from holding tighter? What if it comes from releasing? Forgiveness and letting go are not about condoning harm or erasing truth. They are about freeing ourselves from the weight of what we cannot change. As the saying goes, holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. We carry anger, hurt, and bitterness, often thinking we're protecting ourselves. But in truth, we're imprisoning ourselves, reliving wounds, retriggering pain, rehearsing stories that keep us small and guarded. Letting go is not forgetting. It's remembering without reliving. It's choosing peace over punishment, especially self-punishment. Let's start with forgiveness. Not the sanitized version of it, not the forced smiles or fake acceptance. Real forgiveness is messy. It's a process. It begins not with the other person, but with you. Forgiveness is first and foremost a gift to yourself. You don't forgive because someone deserves it. You forgive because you do. Because you deserve freedom from the emotional leash that ties your well-being to someone else's past behavior. Clinical psychologist Dr. Fred Luskin, director of the Stanford Forgiveness Project, found that people who practice forgiveness experience reduced stress, lower blood pressure, and improved immune function. In his studies, those who learned to forgive reported increased hopefulness and a greater sense of life satisfaction. Why? Because forgiveness isn't passive, it's powerful. It says, I no longer give you the power to hurt me through my memory of you. It says, I choose to invest my energy in healing, not hate. This doesn't mean reconciliation. You can forgive someone and never speak to them again. You can forgive someone and still uphold boundaries. Forgiveness is an internal shift, not an external permission slip. Sometimes the hardest person to forgive is ourselves. We ruminate over old decisions, mistakes, moments we wish we could rewrite. But the past is not a prison unless we keep locking ourselves inside. Self-forgiveness begins by acknowledging you did the best you could with the awareness, tools, and emotional capacity you had at the time. You can grow without punishing your younger self. You can evolve without disowning who you were. Now consider grief. We often think grief only applies to death. But we grieve all kinds of things: lost friendships, failed ventures, versions of ourselves we've outgrown. And yet we resist grief, push it away, rush it, try to get over it. But grief isn't an enemy. It's a companion to love. We grieve what mattered. We grieve because we felt deeply. And the only way out is through. To let go is to allow the wave to pass through you without trying to dam the river. Story time. A woman named Teresa lost her husband of 20 years. For 2 years, she kept his clothes, his books, his shoes exactly where they were the day he died. She couldn't bear to move them. She felt that letting go of these things would be letting go of him. But one afternoon, she sat with a grief counselor who asked, what if letting go isn't about losing him? It's about making space for the next chapter of your life with him in your heart, not in your hallway? That question opened something. She began the slow process of release. Not to forget, but to move forward. She kept one shirt, one letter, one photo. She donated the rest. And something surprising happened. She felt lighter. Not because the love was gone, but because she no longer needed to carry the weight of the past to honor it. This is the essence of letting go. It's not erasure. It's elevation. You lift the meaning. You let go of the burden. Let's talk about control. So many of us carry the weight of trying to control the uncontrollable. Other people's reactions, outcomes, the future. But as the Stoics reminded us centuries ago, Peace lies in distinguishing between what we can and cannot control. You cannot control whether someone forgives you, but you can forgive yourself. You cannot control what life brings, but you can control how you meet it. Letting go of control is not apathy. It's trust. Trust that you can meet whatever comes with grace. Trust that you don't need to micromanage every detail to live a good life. Trust that uncertainty is not the enemy, it's the birthplace of possibility. Buddhist teacher Jack Kornfield writes, "To let go does not mean to get rid of. To let go means to let be. When we let be with compassion, things come and go on their own." So how do we practice letting go in daily life? Notice the grip. What are you clinging to? A story, a role, a resentment, an outcome? Awareness is the first act of freedom. Name the cost. What is this attachment costing you in energy, peace, joy? Invite compassion. Letting go isn't cold detachment. It's tender honesty. Offer yourself kindness in the process. Ritualize release. Write a letter you'll never send. Burn a list of what you're ready to release. Give away something symbolic. The body remembers rituals. Practice presence. Letting go isn't just backward looking. It's choosing to be here, not trapped in a mental past or anxious future. It's saying yes to now. Letting go is a lifelong practice. It's not something we do once. It's something we return to again and again. A softening, a surrender, a conscious act of courage. Because the truth is, every time we let go of what no longer serves us, we make room for what will. We empty our hands so they can receive. We unclench our hearts so they can feel again. In the end, the weight we carry is rarely what others did to us. It's what we continue to carry long after the moment has passed. And the lightness you seek, it begins the moment you decide to release what was, so you can fully live what is. Chapter 15. Gratitude, awe, and the sacred in everyday life. It's easy to overlook the quiet magic woven into the fabric of everyday existence. In a world obsessed with more speed, more achievement, more ambition, we often miss the simple, sacred moments hiding in plain sight. The first sip of coffee in the morning, a sudden breeze on a hot day, the way sunlight falls on a wooden floor, the smile of a stranger. These are not just pleasant distractions. They are portals to presence. Gratitude is not a personality trait. It's a practice. Awe is not limited to mountaintops or grand miracles. It lives in the micro moments. And the sacred is not reserved for temples or cathedrals. It breathes in the pauses, the ordinary, the often overlooked. To live a full and joyful life, we must learn to see, not just look, to listen, not just hear, and to receive, not just chase. Modern psychology and ancient wisdom traditions converge on this point. People who cultivate gratitude, awe, and a sense of reverence experience higher levels of well-being, stronger relationships, and deeper resilience. And this isn't wishful thinking, it's science. Let's start with gratitude. Dr. Robert Emmons, one of the leading researchers on gratitude, found that people who kept a simple gratitude journal, writing down just 3 things they were thankful for each day, reported better sleep, fewer physical symptoms, more optimism, and greater progress toward personal goals. It's not magic. It's neuroplasticity. The brain rewires itself around what we repeatedly focus on. And here's the truth most people miss. Gratitude doesn't erase pain. It coexists with it. You can be grieving and still grateful, anxious and still thankful, lost and still able to notice the kindness of a friend or the warmth of a cup of tea. In fact, gratitude is often most powerful when life feels uncertain or difficult. It shifts us from scarcity to sufficiency, from control to trust, from survival mode to soulful presence. It's the difference between waking up and thinking, "I have to get through this day," versus, "I get to live this day." A small shift, a radical reframe. Now let's talk about awe. Awe is that expansive feeling you get when you see something vast, beautiful, or mysterious, something that reminds you of your smallness in the most comforting way. Awe shrinks the ego and expands our sense of connection. It happens when we stand under a sky full of stars, when we witness the birth of a child, when we hear a piece of music so beautiful it brings tears. But awe isn't limited to the dramatic. Researchers like Dr. Keltner at UC Berkeley have found that awe is everywhere, if we learn to look. People feel a watching trees sway in the wind, hearing a powerful story, watching a stranger help another. It's not about spectacle. It's about presence. It makes us more generous, more cooperative, more humble. It reminds us that we're part of something larger. In a time when individualism and competition are often glorified, or reconnects us to the collective, to wonder, to reverence. It pulls us out of the closed circuit of self-preoccupation and opens a window to the divine, whatever that means to you. Which brings us to the sacred. For some, the sacred is explicitly spiritual or religious. For others, it's not. But in all cases, the sacred points to something deeper, a recognition that not everything can be measured, monetized, or explained. That some moments deserve silence instead of commentary. To see the sacred in daily life is to walk with reverence, to move slower, to notice, to bless the mundane. It's lighting a candle before dinner. It's whispering thank you before sleep. It's pausing before you respond, because life isn't just about getting through the day, it's about living it with intention. Many monastic traditions, Benedictine, Zen, Sufi, emphasize the ritualization of the ordinary. Washing dishes becomes a meditation. Sweeping the floor is an act of devotion. Eating is an offering. The sacred isn't elsewhere. It's here, now, in the smallest gestures done with love. Consider this story. A man in his 70s, recently retired, was asked how he planned to spend his time now that he didn't have to work. He replied, "I'm going to sit in the backyard with my dog, drink coffee slowly, and finally notice the clouds." He wasn't retreating from life, he was returning to it. To the rhythm he had forgotten. To the sacredness he'd been too busy to see. And here's the invitation. You don't have to wait until retirement. You don't have to wait until the weekend, or a crisis, or some momentous change. You can start now. Start by noticing something beautiful today, something you normally rush past. Name 3 things you're thankful for, even if your mind says there's nothing big enough to list. Take a breath before your next meal and whisper, "This is enough." You're not performing gratitude. You're practicing it. Like a muscle, it grows stronger with use. The beauty of these practices, gratitude, awe, reverence, is that they don't require anything external to change. You don't need a better job, a bigger house, or a more perfect body to begin. You just need to shift your attention. Gratitude says, "This is enough." Awe says, "I am part of something vast." The sacred whispers, "Right here is holy." And when these 3 come together, something inside you softens. You stop chasing and start arriving. You begin to feel at home not just in the world, but in yourself. So take this as your reminder. Joy is not always loud. Fulfillment is not always flashy. Sometimes, the most extraordinary life is made of very ordinary moments fully lived. Let that be your practice. Let that be your prayer. Chapter 16. Rituals of Joy. Celebrating the ordinary. In a culture wired for speed and achievement, celebration is often reserved for milestones. The promotion, the wedding, the finish line. We throw parties for big events, but rarely pause to honor the beauty of the everyday. Yet the heartbeat of a joyful life is not built on grand gestures. It's built on rhythm, on ritual, on choosing again and again to find wonder in the ordinary. Rituals are more than routines. Routines are what we do. Rituals are how we do it, and more importantly, why. They infuse intention into repetition. A morning cup of tea becomes a moment of centering. Lighting a candle at dinner becomes an act of presence. Tucking in a child with the same phrase each night becomes a thread of belonging woven into the fabric of their memory. These small rituals, done often and done with heart, shape our days, and eventually, our lives. Let's look at what this means in practice. Joy is not just a feeling. It's an orientation to life. It's a way of seeing. And when we ritualize joy, when we build it into the architecture of our day, we stop waiting for life to deliver happiness to our doorstep. We become co-creators of it. We plant it, nurture it, return to it. Take the story of a single father named Julian. Every Sunday, he and his young daughter would cook pancakes, even when money was tight and time was short. It wasn't just breakfast. It was their sacred hour, music playing, batter splattered on the counter, laughter spilling across the kitchen. It was their ritual. Years later, when his daughter left for college, she didn't remember the toys or clothes. She remembered the pancakes. This is the power of ritual. It transforms the ordinary into the unforgettable. Anthropologists have long studied how rituals help people create meaning, connect to others, and regulate emotion. In a world that often feels chaotic and uncertain, rituals offer a sense of structure and control, not in a rigid way, but in a grounding one. They anchor us, but here's where many people get stuck. They think rituals have to be formal, religious, or elaborate. They don't doubt a ritual can be lighting incense before you write, whispering a word of encouragement in the mirror each morning, sending a voice note to a friend every Friday just to say, "I'm thinking of you." Stretching for 90 seconds before bed while reflecting on what went well today. Even watering your plants with awareness can be a ritual of joy. The point isn't what you do. The point is that you do it with attention and affection, that there's also deep power in seasonal rituals, those that mark the changing of time and the passage of life. Many cultures have ancient practices that honor the solstices, harvests, new moons, or full moons. Whether or not you're drawn to these traditions, the act of marking time, of saying, "This matters, this is worth pausing for," grounds you in the rhythm of nature. In our modern lives, we've lost much of this sacred rhythm, but we can bring it back. You might create a ritual to celebrate the start of a new month, cleaning your space, lighting a candle, setting an intention, or a closing ritual for each work week, something that signals, "I'm stepping out of productivity and into rest." Even transitions deserve rituals. Moving from one job to another, ending a relationship, finishing a creative project. These thresholds are part of the story of your life, and when you ritualize them, you allow yourself to process, release, and carry forward only what serves you. There's also something uniquely healing about communal rituals: shared meals, story circles, Sunday walks with friends, book clubs, game nights, family check-ins. These create continuity and connection. They remind us that joy is not just personal, it's relational. That we can be held by rhythm and routine, not just responsibility. Author and teacher Jack Kornfield once said, "In the end, just three things matter: how well we have lived, how well we have loved, and how well we have learned to let go." Rituals help us do all three. They are quiet signposts that guide us toward what matters. How do you begin creating rituals of joy? Start small. Look at your day and ask, where do I already have rhythm that I can make more sacred? What do I want to feel more of? Peace, gratitude, playfulness. How can I build that feeling into my day on purpose? Then begin. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be yours. Let's say you want more lightness in your life. Maybe your ritual becomes dancing for one song while brushing your teeth, or writing a silly haiku each morning, or naming one thing that made you smile before you go to sleep. Want more presence? Try a 1-minute breathing pause every time you sit down at your desk, or turn your coffee making into a morning meditation, smelling the grounds, noticing the steam, sipping slowly instead of rushing. Want more connection? Create a Wednesday Wonder ritual where you and a friend share one thing that amazed you this week. Call your parents every Sunday afternoon. Share a meal with no phones once a week. Make it simple. Make it doable. But make it real, and don't forget to celebrate. Not just the big stuff, but the small wins, the quiet courage, the moments you chose love over fear. Celebration is one of the most powerful forms of ritual. It says, "This matters. I matter. Life matters." When you live with ritual, you live with rhythm. When you celebrate the ordinary, you honor the sacred. And when you choose joy, even when it's easier not to, you practice a quiet rebellion against the numbing, the rushing, the scarcity that so often dulls the human spirit. In the end, A joyful life isn't made of massive peaks, it's made of thousands of small, intentional steps that a breath, a smile, a moment repeated again and again with love. That is the essence of ritual. That is the heart of joy. Chapter 17. Building your personal philosophy of happiness. Happiness isn't a formula. It's not a one-size-fits-all checklist handed down from the mountaintop. It's not found in the number of digits in a bank account, nor in the volume of applause or followers. True, durable happiness is more like a compass, something deeply personal that helps us navigate the landscape of our lives with intention and alignment. And like any compass, it needs calibration. That's where your personal philosophy of happiness comes in. Your personal philosophy is your inner blueprint, a living document made up of beliefs, values, stories, and lessons. It evolves as you evolve. It doesn't guarantee a life without pain, but it gives you a frame to hold that pain. It doesn't make life easier. It makes it more meaningful. When built consciously, it becomes your quiet North Star, but most of us never sit down and intentionally ask, what do I believe about happiness? Where did those beliefs come from? Are they true for me? Many people inherit their definitions of happiness. Maybe it came from family. Success equals stability. Stability equals happiness. Maybe it came from culture. Be beautiful, be popular, be impressive. Or perhaps from education. Get the grades, get the job, then you'll be happy. These ideas often operate beneath the surface, quietly shaping our goals, our choices, our regrets. But what happens when the life you've built according to someone else's definition still leaves you feeling empty? That's when it's time to begin again, from within. Think of people like Viktor Frankl, the Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist who wrote Man's Search for Meaning. Stripped of everything, imprisoned in the most dehumanizing conditions, he discovered that happiness could not be manufactured from circumstances. It came from purpose, from the ability to choose how one responds, even when control has been lost. He wrote, "Those who have a why to live can bear almost any how." Your philosophy doesn't need to be as profound as Frankl's, but it does need to be yours. It needs to come from your life, your questions, your truths. Start with this. What are the moments when you felt most alive? Not just excited or entertained, but truly present, grateful, grounded. These moments are clues. Maybe it was watching the sunrise alone. Maybe it was losing yourself in your craft. Maybe it was laughing with friends around a fire. That feeling? That's your real definition of happiness beginning to speak. Ask yourself, what matters most to me, really? When do I feel most like myself? What values am I unwilling to trade, even for comfort? What kind of pain am I willing to endure if it means I'm living truthfully? Your answers to these questions start to form the core of your philosophy. Now let's take an example. Priya, a software engineer in her late 30s, spent over a decade climbing the ladder at a prestigious firm. On paper, she had it all, but something was missing. She realized she was optimizing her life for security, when what she truly valued was creativity. It wasn't easy, but she transitioned into a role that paid less, but allowed her to build and design every day. Her anxiety decreased. Her joy increased. Why? Because her outer life started aligning with her inner beliefs. This alignment is the essence of a personal philosophy. It becomes your filter for decision-making, for energy allocation, for navigating change. Without it, life pulls you in 1,000 directions. With it, you become anchored. Your philosophy doesn't need to be static. In fact, it shouldn't be. You're allowed to change. In your 20s, happiness might mean freedom. In your 30s, it might mean depth. In your 60s, it might mean legacy. This isn't inconsistency, it's growth. And here's something essential. Your philosophy must include permission for difficulty. That we live in a world obsessed with ease. But deep happiness often comes through discomfort, not around it. The satisfaction after a long run. The pride of rebuilding a relationship. the peace that follows grief, not because it's over, but because you survived. If your definition of happiness excludes challenge, it will crumble the moment life becomes hard. The Stoics knew this. They didn't pursue happiness by seeking pleasure. They pursued eudaimonia, a life of virtue, character, and resilience. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." That's the foundation. Your personal philosophy is not about what you possess. It's about what you practice. Here's a structure to build yours. Values. What principles are non-negotiable to you? Kindness, integrity, curiosity, freedom. Beliefs. What do you believe about what makes life meaningful? What do you believe about growth, suffering, joy, contribution? Practices. What daily, weekly, or seasonal habits help you live these beliefs? Stories. What stories from your past shape your lens? What stories are you ready to rewrite? Definition of enough. What does enough look like for work, rest, relationships, ambition? Legacy. What do you want to be remembered for? Not in a grandiose way, but in the quiet, real way. When you've built this map, life won't always go according to plan, but you'll know which direction to walk. You'll trust yourself more. You'll waste less time chasing the wrong things. You'll find joy in moments you used to overlook because they align with who you really are. Remember, happiness is not about being upbeat all the time. It's about being awake. Awake to your own life. Awake to your inner landscape. Awake to what matters and willing to shape your days around it. That is the gift of a personal philosophy. It doesn't promise that life will be easy, but it does make it yours. And there's nothing more fulfilling than a life lived by design, not default. Chapter 18. A Life in Progress. Embracing imperfection and change. We love the idea of arrival. The moment when the house is finally clean, the inbox finally empty, the career finally flourishing, the relationships finally steady, the body finally right. We are conditioned to chase this mythical milestone, where everything clicks, the storms settle, and happiness becomes permanent. But here's the honest truth. Life doesn't work like that. It's not a static destination. It's a moving river, a series of becoming. And so are we. The phrase, "a life in progress," may sound modest, but it carries enormous power. It means giving up the illusion of perfection, not as a surrender, but as a deeper form of self-respect. It means allowing yourself to evolve without shame, to change your mind, to outgrow people and plans, to become a different version of yourself and not apologize for the journey that brought you there. We are constantly under construction, not broken, not behind, just unfinished. This idea can be unsettling, especially in a culture addicted to certainty, results, and 5-year plans. But the wisest, most grounded people you'll meet are often the ones who've made peace with the process. They've stopped asking, "When will I finally be enough?" and started asking, "How can I live more truthfully today?" In Japan, there's a concept called wabi-sabi, the beauty found in imperfection, impermanence, and incompleteness. A cracked ceramic bowl isn't discarded. It's repaired with gold, in a method called kintsugi, making the break part of the story, not a flaw to hide. The result is something more valuable, more meaningful, because it shows the journey. Imagine applying this philosophy to your own life. Your stretch marks, your regrets, your career pivots, your family mess, your slow healing, not as mistakes, but as golden lines woven into who you are. This is not about lowering standards. It's about deepening humanity. Consider the story of Nadia, a former athlete who tore her ACL just before Olympic qualifiers. Her dream shattered overnight. After months of depression and self-loathing, she began to paint, something she hadn't done since childhood. Slowly, the art became a language of healing. She didn't replace her old dream. She expanded it. Today, she teaches movement and creativity to injured athletes around the world. Her life didn't go as planned, but it grew more meaningful because she allowed herself to change direction. Growth isn't always linear. Sometimes it looks like circles, Sometimes it looks like letting go of the very thing you once fought to have. Embracing imperfection also means confronting the lie that everyone else has it figured out. Social media is a highlight reel, not a mirror. Most people are fumbling their way through, just like you. The difference is whether we allow ourselves to admit it. When you embrace imperfection, you give others permission to do the same. You create real connection, not curated performance. Vulnerability becomes a bridge. And isn't that where joy actually lives? In the spaces where we're fully seen, not as polished statues, but as breathing, trying, tender works in progress. Psychologist Carol Dweck's research on the growth mindset reinforces this. Those who believe that traits like intelligence, creativity, or resilience can be developed rather than fixed are more likely to persevere, learn from feedback, and bounce back from failure. They understand that stumbling is part of mastery. That discomfort is the raw material of expansion. Compare this to the perfectionist trap: always performing, always controlling, always comparing. It's a joyless place to live. Because even when perfectionists win, they don't feel like they've arrived. They just raise the bar. Again and again. Living as a work in progress offers relief. It redefines success, not as reaching an ideal, but as living in alignment. Asking yourself regularly, am I learning? Am I growing in kindness toward myself and others? Am I showing up as fully as I can? Even if today's version isn't flawless, it's easy to love ourselves when we're thriving. The real work, the real freedom comes from learning to love ourselves mid-chapter. In the mess, in the liminal space between who we were and who we're becoming. Take time to reflect on your own evolution. Write a letter to your younger self, not to fix them, but to thank them. They did the best they could with what they knew. And look where they brought you. Then write a letter to your future self, not filled with pressure, but filled with hope. Tell them you're trying. Tell them you're proud of the progress, even if it's slow. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not late to your life. You are unfolding. Yes, some chapters close without warning. Yes, some dreams need to die so new ones can take their place. But all of it, every twist, every failure, every rediscovered joy belongs. Nothing is wasted when we decide to learn from it, to let it shape us, to stay awake to what it's making in us.in this way. You are not a project to complete. You are a story to live. And the beauty of that story isn't found in its polish. It's found in its pulse. So breathe deep. Let the expectations soften. Let yourself change, shed, rise, and begin again. That's not failure. That's life. And you, dear reader, are doing it beautifully. Chapter 19. A future built on now. The daily practice of a happy life. We tend to think of happiness as a distant summit, something we'll reach after we fix everything, achieve everything, become someone better than who we are today. It's as if joy is a reward waiting at the end of a long, perfect journey. But life doesn't wait. It unfolds, moment by moment, in the quiet decisions we make every single day. The truth is simple but profound. Your future is built from what you practice now, not from what you hope or promise or dream, but from what you consistently return to, today and again tomorrow. Happiness is not a finish line. It's a rhythm, a daily, imperfect, intentional rhythm. Think of a craftsman working on a piece of wood. The transformation doesn't happen in a single sweep. It's the daily motion, the steady pressure of the chisel, the careful sanding, the shaping, the refining. The beauty emerges through practice. A joyful, meaningful life is not something we stumble into. It's something we craft, deliberately, slowly, imperfectly, with the tools of attention, intention, and choice. What does this look like in practice? It starts with presence, not the abstract, poetic kind, but the grounded, gritty kind. The kind that asks you to look up from your phone at the dinner table, to pause before reacting, to notice the way sunlight filters through your window in the morning. Presence is not always easy. It takes discipline to resist distraction, to sit in the discomfort of silence, to stay awake to your real life instead of defaulting to autopilot. But presence is the soil where joy grows. From there, you build with small, sustaining habits, Not grand gestures, but small acts that anchor your day and align with your values. Morning walks, 5-minute gratitude lists, checking in with a friend, drinking water, stretching your body, turning off screens an hour before bed. None of these things are groundbreaking on their own, but compounded, they form the shape of your days, and your days become your life. James Clear, in his book Atomic Habits, wrote, "You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems." Happiness isn't about lofty resolutions. It's about building systems that support who you want to become, one choice at a time. Let's look at a story. David was a burned-out entrepreneur in his 40s. His business was thriving, but his life felt hollow. He tried therapy, retreats, even a sabbatical, but nothing seemed to stick. Until his therapist gave him a deceptively simple task: drink a glass of water each morning and take 5 deep breaths. That's it. At first, it felt pointless, but he did it. Then he started stretching, then journaling, then walking his dog without checking email. Within a few months, the shift was undeniable, not because he'd made dramatic changes, but because he'd begun to live on purpose. This is the paradox. When we try to overhaul everything, we burn out. But when we choose one small thing and commit to it with care, our life begins to shift, quietly, deeply, from the inside out. There is immense power in ordinary consistency. Your daily life is not preparation for something greater. It is the main event. How you live your hours is how you live your years. The mundane moments, the breakfast you shared, the kind reply you wrote, the breath you took when frustrated. These are the bricks of your future, and the practice of a happy life also means learning how to recover. Not every day will be bright. Some mornings will be heavy. Some choices will miss the mark. That's not failure. It's part of the rhythm. What matters is that you return. You forgive yourself quickly. You pick up the thread, even after you've dropped it. This return is its own kind of victory, and it's also important to build rituals, not just routines. Where routines keep us productive, rituals keep us human. Lighting a candle before journaling. Playing a certain song when you need courage. Saying a mantra when you wake up. These small, sacred acts add texture and meaning to your life. They remind you that happiness isn't sterile, it's soulful. Another daily practice is reflection. Set aside a few minutes to ask, what energized me today? What drained me? What did I love about this day? What would I like to do differently tomorrow? These questions don't require deep analysis, but they create awareness. And awareness is where transformation begins. Consider also the people in your daily orbit. A happy life isn't built alone. Make it a practice to nourish your relationships. Send voice notes. Write a thank you text. Sit and really listen to your partner. Tell someone they inspire you. These micro moments of connection are deposits in the emotional bank account of your life. Over time, they generate compound interest in the form of love, belonging, and shared joy. And finally, remember, this isn't about achieving a flawless lifestyle. It's about staying awake to what matters. It's about choosing to align your actions with your values again and again, even when it's inconvenient. You don't need to wait for a vacation, a promotion, or a better version of yourself. You don't need a perfect plan. You just need to start where you are, with what you have, and live this moment as if it matters. Because it does. The future you dream of is not built out there, in some undefined someday. It's built here. In this hour. In your breath, your attention, your courage to try again. And again. That's the practice. A life that feels meaningful. A heart that feels full. A day that ends not in exhaustion, but in quiet satisfaction. It's not a miracle. It's a choice point one you get to make every single day.